Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. So we begin this episode in the eve of Travelercon. Jester, Caleb, Veth, and Yasha decide to go dancing, while Ford, Clay, and Bo decide to step to the side a little bit and keep an eye on things. The three of them begin discussing their concerns with the Traveler, and all three of them mutually agree that they're all really just here for Jester, and if the Traveler decides to betray Jester in any way, they will not hesitate to defend her. Eventually, Jester walks over to the three of them and asks to speak to Caduceus. The two of them decide to have a joint commune session where they will attempt to contact the Moonweaver. Jester believes this to be appropriate since the Traveler is going to be dumping his followers onto her, so Jester might as well try to get to know her at least. However, as both of them attempt to commune to the Moonweaver, they are only able to commune with their god. The big question that Caduceus asks is the Traveler being honest with Jester and his intentions? And the Wild Mother honestly doesn't know, so that is still a bit concerning for Caduceus. Jester makes contact with the Traveler, who simply just walks up from the party down below, and she simply asks him if he's worried or anxious about what's to come. And the Traveler concedes that he is maybe a bit worried, maybe a bit anxious, but he's just excited to finally be relieved of his duties as this godlike figure. And then Jester asks if he would be a bit jealous if Jester decided to pray or try to contact the Moonweaver in some way. To which the Traveler replied with, "Yeah, maybe I would be a little bit jealous." But after they finish their communing, they go back to the rest of the party, where Bo has sort of become the bartender, in a way. Unintentionally, of course, she was simply trying to make drinks for her friends, but she ended up drawing a rather big crowd. But that crowd was very easily dispersed, as Yasha made it very clear that this was not a line for the bar, and they were simply having a conversation. And so with the bar area clear, Bo, Yasha, Veth, and Caleb have a discussion about what's next. What is next for the Mighty Nine after all of this Travelercon business is said and done? Veth has made it very clear that she wants to go home. She wants to be with her family. And Caleb brings up the fact that he too wants to go home. He wants to go back to the Empire because there is a lot of unfinished business for him, and he's uneasy about what they've left there. And he really hopes the rest of the Mighty Nine, but specifically Veth and Bo, will go back with him. There are things he wants to figure out, things he wants to discover. He knows that things probably aren't going to be going back to normal even though the peace talks were successful, and he still knows that there is a lot of corruption in the Cerberus Assembly. And so he's hoping, with the combined efforts of the Mighty Nine, they will be able to get to the bottom of all of this corruption and conspiracy. And in this conversation, and in many of the conversations that happen this episode, Bo brings up the point that the Mighty Nine are very codependent on each other. Which, yeah, I'd say that's probably pretty true. But as this conversation is happening, Jester, off to the side, begins to use her special paints to craft herself a brand new High Priestess dress. And as she's crafting this beautifully detailed outfit, she begins to draw a crowd. And as she finishes her creation and it comes to life, the crowd is in absolute awe at her capabilities. Panning back over to Bo, she breaks away from Veth, Yasha, and Caleb to go find Ford. She eventually finds him standing on his own, just keeping a sharp eye out amongst the crowd. And the two of them have a very nice heart-to-heart. They haven't really checked in on each other in a while. And again, this conversation held a similar sentiment to the one previously, where they're talking about what are they going to do next, and they talk about how much they've changed since they've all been together. Ford was saying that the Mighty Nine sort of gave his life a purpose. He wasn't doing anything in particular before he found the Mighty Nine, but now he feels like he's maybe found a clear path, or maybe a goal, with the rest of the Mighty Nine. And then Bo brings up again the whole codependency thing, where they're not really sure what life is going to be like after the Mighty Nine. They've grown so close, and they've accomplished so much in so little time. It's kind of hard to imagine what life will be like if they aren't together. But then the conversation takes a bit more of a lighthearted turn where they talk about their crushes, specifically on Jester and then Bo with Yasha. I won't go into too much more detail than that, but it was just nice to see them talk about their feelings that they had for their crushes. And after their conversation concluded, the party rests for the evening. They all have collective dreams about their journeys together, the amount of change that each of them have endured, and then they wake up in the morning with Travelercon in full swing. The party quickly decides to plan an opening ceremony of sorts, with Yasha opening up with her harp, and then Caleb doing his fancy magic and Veth announcing Jester's arrival. Ford casts a few Eldritch blasts into the air to get everyone's attention, and then the crowd begins to gather as Yasha begins to play her harp. It was a bit rough at first, her performance, but as she went into the second song, she really found her groove and rhythm, and the crowd absolutely adored her. And while I know Yasha's charisma is low, it would be absolutely amazing to see her maybe multi-class into a bard somehow. Again, mechanically, I don't know how that would work, but it would be really cool to see. After Yasha's incredible performance, Veth introduced Jester to the stage by firing her pistol into the ground, not into the air, into the ground. And with that gunshot, Jester casts Mirror Image to create multiple versions of herself, and then dimension doors right onto the stage, with this green swirling mist flowing all around. And as she appears, Caleb creates these gorgeous butterfly wings that sprout from behind her. Another gentleman in the crowd notices that Caleb is casting these spells. This gentleman reveals himself to be the Traveler and gets a little bit jealous that Caleb is providing so much for Jester. And so the Traveler puts in his own little flair and creates a massive, viney throne for Jester to sit upon. And now that all eyes are on Jester, she simply gives a rundown of the various activities you can do while Travelercon is happening, and that the main event that starts right now is the Dick Hunt. And there is a very special prize for the one who finds the golden dick. And with that being said, the crowd immediately erupts and disperses to locate as many dicks as they can. After a short while, Celia, the snobby one, we'll say, was the one who found the golden dick, much to the dismay of Jester. And Jester didn't really have a prize in mind for whoever found the golden dick, so she just made it up on the spot and simply told Celia that she would have the honor of being the last one to throw her dick into the volcano. And Veth, noticing the clear tension between Celia and Jester, asks Celia to give the golden dick to Veth so she might clean it and consecrate it for the offering later that evening. Celia agrees and hands the golden dick to Veth, and then Veth sneakily puts on the Sovereign Glue, a glue that, if you come in contact with it, it will be stuck on you forever, and the only way that it can be removed is with a wish spell. And so with this glue on the golden dick, Veth hands it back to Celia, and she firmly grasps it in her hand. And so now, with the sun setting and the dick hunting concluded, the Traveler and Jester tell everyone that it's time to gather and begin the trek up the mountain. Luckily, they reach the top without issue. I imagine a traveling group of over 150 people would deter many of the wildlife in the area, and they do reach the top without issue. The Traveler and Jester reach the top first, and they have a brief discussion of what the heck they're gonna do once all of the followers come up here. And they ultimately decide to just wing it. And finally, once the followers of the Traveler finally reach the top, starting off as one by one, the followers begin to throw their dicks into the volcano, but Jester and the Traveler realize that that's going to take quite a long time, and so to speed up the process, they just say, everyone just go for it, just start throwing your dicks into the volcano. And so they do, dicks flying everywhere, smoke plumes coming out of the volcano. It's just a wonderful time seeing a bunch of dicks flying in the air. And then we come to Celia, who has the golden dick, the last one to be thrown into the volcano. As Jester calls her up, Celia says, "No, it's fine. I don't need to throw my dick into the volcano. It's okay." But Jester insists that she must, and the Traveler looks at her saying, "Trust me, Believe in me, you can do this. And Celia puts her faith in the Traveler, takes a deep breath, and begins to step forward and run towards the volcano. And Bo, who's been keeping a close eye on Celia this whole time, thinks that she might be trying to jump into the volcano herself for some reason. And so Bo and Yasha immediately sprint towards Celia to tackle her out of the way to stop her from potentially jumping into the volcano. However, as soon as they collide and skid across the ground, Celia's like, "What the heck were you doing?" And Bo's like, "What? I thought you were gonna jump into the volcano." And Celia was like, "No, I wasn't gonna do that. I was just getting a running start." And Bo was like, "Oh, I think I may have misinterpreted your actions." And everyone was just like, "What the heck happened?" The crowd is like, "What is going on?" Jester's like, "What the heck? Why'd you do that?" And it was just a big misunderstanding. Celia was just getting a running start, but she brushes herself off and begins to attempt to throw her golden dick into the volcano, which does not succeed. She keeps trying, but the dick is glued to her hand forever. And so Celia, ashamed of herself, falls back into the crowd, and the Traveler begins his final words before his ascension takes place. Now, while he's talking, a moon appears in the sky behind parted clouds. The Traveler leans into Jester, saying, "This isn't his doing. Was this you? Is this Caleb? Is this someone?" And Jester's like, "I don't know who it is." And as the Traveler begins talking, chains fly towards him and wrap around him and hold him tightly as a champion of the Moonweaver flies down upon this scene, calling out the Traveler for his lies and deceitfulness, the manipulation that he has used over these followers. She explains that he is to be punished and returned back to his realm as he begins to slowly be pulled towards the moon. Now at this point, everyone is in complete shock. No one expected this to happen, and as the Traveler is being lifted off the ground and pulled against his will, himself panicking even, Jester leaps towards him and grabs onto him, crying out to this champion, begging for forgiveness. She says that she loves the Traveler and that she needs him. And as this is happening, the Traveler is still being pulled towards the moon with Jester still attached. And Ford, seeing this, he casts Hex onto Jester so that he is able to teleport to her, and he grabs onto her as well. He tells her that she has to let go. She can't go with him. She shouldn't be the one who also has to pay for what the Traveler has done. And the champion of the Moonweaver even tells Jester, "Are you willing to share the burden that the Traveler has? Are you willing to be sent back to his realm to serve whatever punishment is waiting for him?" And Jester thinks for a moment. She looks at the Traveler, she looks at Ford, and there's a moment where I think everyone may have thought that she will go with the Traveler. But before she can decide, the Traveler kicks Jester and Ford off of him as they both begin plummeting towards the ground. But Caleb easily casts Featherfall onto them so they don't fall into the volcano. And as Yasha and Bo catch Ford and Jester, the Traveler continues to be taken towards the moon. And as he gets closer, the champion's voice changes to that of the Moonweaver. And she asks the Traveler if he's learned his lesson, if he is going to give up his lies, if he's going to leave these followers behind. The chains release around him, and the Traveler in the moment is quite ashamed and completely embarrassed, simply says, yeah, I've learned my lesson, and shamefully descends back down to the ground. The Moonweaver then directs her attention towards the ex-followers of the Traveler at this point, and says that if they are lost, if they do need guidance, there is a home for you with me. And with that being said, the Moonweaver and her champion depart back into the moon, and the moon fades away, leaving the Traveler, the 160 followers, and the Mighty Nine behind in complete silence and disbelief of what they just witnessed. The Traveler almost immediately shamefully leaves the area, while the rest of the crowd slowly disperses and goes back down towards the village. The party then gather within the dome and just talk about what just happened. They check in on Jester to make sure she's okay with what happened, and honestly, it's it's probably too soon for her to process, but ultimately they all agree that this is kind of what they could have expected to happen. It was definitely on brand, since their whole thing is chaos and uncertainty. And ultimately, the Traveler got what he wanted, maybe just not in the way that he hoped. The Traveler eventually comes back and sort of knocks on the dome door. Caleb lets him in, and the Traveler just tells everyone what he thinks of what just happened. It was absolutely crazy, and he asks for a drink of rum that Bo has, and Bo said that she'll only give it to him if she's allowed to punch him. The Traveler agrees, and then Bo finally gets to punch the Traveler after many times of bringing up the fact that she'd really just like to punch him and how she just really doesn't like them. She finally got that release. The Traveler asks Jester if they could talk in private, and so they exit the dome and walk a little ways away, and in this conversation, the Traveler apologizes to Jester. This is the most humble we've ever seen him. He does seem to be very remorseful of his actions. And they talk about what's going to come next. What does the Traveler want to do? Is he worried about what's going to happen? And the Traveler admits that he's kind of excited now. He doesn't know what's going to happen next. He finally has his freedom again. And the Traveler explained how there is a magical version of himself that's tending to the crowds down below to clear the air of any uncertainty. And Jester, being impressed by this power, asks the Traveler if maybe she could have this capability as well, since she is able to create a duplicate of herself. However, she's not able to speak with it. And the Traveler thinks for a moment and does grant her an enhanced version of her duplicate form. She now has twice the range on it, and she is able to speak through her duplicate. I can only imagine the shenanigans she's going to be able to get up to with this new power. And of course, she immediately tests it out by going back towards the dome and projecting her duplicate into the dome to talk with the party. All of them except for Veth are not fooled by this duplicate of Jester, and eventually Jester and the Traveler enter the dome once again, where the Traveler apologizes to the Mighty Nine. The Traveler knows that the party does not like him very much, and he understands that, but he explains that he does in a way care about the party, and he doesn't want any harm to come to them. And Jester does make it very clear that the Traveler isn't going anywhere. The Traveler is with her all the time, and every time that Jester heals someone, the Traveler is also in a way healing them. So while the party doesn't like the Traveler still does have their back. But now that the entire party is together, they all begin to talk about what comes next. Now that Travelercon is over, what are they going to do? And Caleb brings up that he wants to solve the mysteries of the Cerberus Assembly. And Caduceus brings up the fact that this whole mysterious entity of the 9 eyes is definitely something they should be concerned about. So it looks like we're gonna have two options. We might finally begin to delve into Caleb's story arc, or we might go into a more darker, mysterious, esoteric entity that is this 9 eyes. For the time being, they decide to gather the ships in the morning and then travel to Yusa and let him know of this mysterious entity. And so a restful evening is had. The party reunites with their crew and carefully move the various ships out of the cavern, claiming the Eden's Horizon as their own and renaming it to the 9 Heroes. As the party gathers on the deck of the ship, they remember to send a message to Yusa, warning him that they are on their way, and then Caleb finishes the teleportation circle and they're all sent to Yusa's tower. The party explains to Yusa what they saw in their vision, and Yusa is definitely curious, and tells the party that he will do his own research, as such an entity might be very dangerous. And so, with a few new objectives in mind, the party sets off for their next stage in their journey. And that is where the episode ends, and the party has reached level 13. And the two things I am most excited for is Caleb now has access to teleportation, and Caleb can now create a mansion. I just cannot wait to hear his descriptions for what the mansion looks like. And of course, there are a lot of other absolutely badass killer spells that I just can't wait to see. But with all of that being said, we are going to wrap up. Let me know all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions during that episode. As always, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.